7 lines from the bottom of the Amud. Today's Amud is being learned. L'schut refuah shelema of Rachel Simcha Bat Nahid, Yasmin Bat Sarah, and Shahram Ben Turan, refuah shelema Bezrat Hashem. Amen. The Gemara is continuing on the vat, the vessel that they pressed the wine in. The wine press that usually was made out of kli, sometimes from wood. And how do you kosherize that? Says the Gemara, one additional element. We spoke the previous shiur about the zephet, the tar that would be smeared upon it to seal the inner lining of the wine press, and we spoke about whether you did dricha, did you squeeze anavim of the goyim inside, or did you not? You have to peel it. You not have to peel it if it's made out of wood versus earthenware. Now the Gemara says, Darash Rava Na'ava Artechu. This is like 4 words in the Gemara, but a lot to be said about these 4 words, because Rava says basically, if you want to kosherize it, you could also heat it up. Now, what does it mean, heat it up? So the Rambam understands that you are actually in the process. This is talking about a wine press that you used it for dricha, you used it for pressing wine by a goy, and now you want to kosherize it. You have to melt away all the zephet, all the tar that's there. So you literally put this vessel on fire until it gets so hot that all the zephet, all the tar comes down, melting away from the vessel. That's what Rambam understands. But Rashi and Tosafot understand this to mean that you are kosherizing it through Hagala. Through Hagala, you are, if you have this wine press that was tarred, so to speak, by a goy, and some wine was poured on top in order to take the odor away, and now you want to quickly take it away without peeling off the tar, you could do Hagala on it. Do Hagala and Chazaku Baruch, you're good to go. Now, there are different ways of understanding this. For instance, the Rosh Rabbeinu Asher understands that the hechsher, the part of the process is, normally speaking, you could do what we call milui ve'irui, that you fill up the vessel for 3 days, 3 24-hour periods, and you empty it, and every 24 hours you are changing the water. You pour out, you fill up with new water, another 24 hours, and you repeat it a 3rd time, and that's milui ve'irui. And if you have something that the goy has also done drichan, says the Rosh, and then you have to do Hagala. Now Rabbeinu Tam asks a very big question. He says, wait a second. Gat, the wine press, is a massive vessel. You don't have a pot that's that big that you could take this and just dip it into Hagala. So how do you Hagala? So no problem. You're taking boiling hot water and you're pouring it on what we call Irui Keli Rishon. And says Rabbeinu Tam, from here, this is a Keshas Tosafot here. From here you see that Irui is like Kli Rishon. That whatever needs Hagala, you could also pour hot water, bubbling water from Kli Rishon on it, and Hazaku Baruch, you're good to go. Rashbam, the Baalei Tosafot, disagrees with Rabbeinu Tam. Says, no, ma pitom, you can't do that. If something actually needs Hagala, you can't do just Irui from Kli Rishon. But the Gat is different. The Gat is different because the entire shimush, the usage of a gat, is betzonin. It's only with cold. So therefore, it's exception here that you could do this pouring of hot water. The Ritva even disagrees with that. So, without getting too much into the intricacies of the Machloket Rishonim, what the Rishonim believe is, for whatever reason, this case is different, that Nava Artechu, that you could pour hot water on it, and that kosherizes the gat, even without the regular proceedings and processes of peeling off and so on. Or if it's something that you need to peel off and still doesn't work, as we mentioned before, that if you did dericha, if you actually had the goy do pressing wine in this gat, then we mentioned that even peeling off by a kli cheres doesn't work. You remember that, right? So according to Rishonim, that would be now still doable, according to Rava, when you peel off the tar, and then you also do this nava artechu, and then it will be good to go. So according to this, comes out for the very first time that kli cheres actually has a takana, right? When it comes to yain nesech, this is the very first time that we are learning that for yain nesech you could actually fix a kli that became treif. Usually we say kli cheres became treif, forget about it, right? Now, we have in Mesechet Chulin, Mesechet Psachim, and here in Avodah Zarah, other things mentioned in Rishonim as well, like the Rosh mentions Hachzarat Kivshonot. Sometimes you put back the Kli Cheres in its original baking oven, which is over 1,000 degrees Fahrenheit of heat, when they actually first bake them in order to make them waterproof, and because if you have a regular Cheres is water and dirt. If you make it and then just let it dry, first of all it cracks, secondly, even if it doesn't, when you put liquid in it, the whole thing would melt again, just like it melted the first time, right? So how do they seal it? They bake it in the oven, and those ovens are not like your regular oven with a little wood. It's a massive oven with tremendous amount of heat there, and if you take it back to Kivshonot, says the Rosh, it would actually work, but we don't allow it with the Rabbanan because maybe you take it prematurely out because you're worried that's going to break. We're not getting into the kishkas, the details of this sugya, but here we have in the Gemara in 4 short lines, and the words of the Rishonim that come with it, that you have a takana for even a kli cheres when it comes to yain nesech. Now, by the way, this is also the first source that we have for the minhag of many, that when it comes to glass on Pesach, they do this very process, that they fill it up 24 hours, pour it out, and they repeat it twice more, and we call that milui ve'irui. Many of the Eastern countries also have had this custom, even though that according to Maran of Shulchan Aruch, glass does not necessarily absorb anything, it's shi'iv or bali, but many consider glass being an earth source, and therefore deal with it as an earthenware, and the process of hechsher, because of the machloket, would be this process of milui v'irui. So if a person has had such a minhag, they should ask their local moreh hora'ah whether or not they're mechuyav to continue that minhag, because that, of course, is based on this. So says the Gemara, Rava ki hava meshadet gulpi leharpaniam. Rava, when sending empty barrels of wine, empty, to other Jews in the city of Harpania, and of course the shipping agents are goyim, so Rava would not just send it as empty barrels and say, well, there's no wine here, because of course there is a concern that the goy is going to use it meanwhile as he's traveling for his own purposes, and then you have yain nesech inside, it will be a problem. That Tosafot over here write something very important. So this is only talking about the small jugs of wine, because it's easy to fill it, and then it comes close to the place, you just pour it out and you drink it. It's easy use. But you have the large stand-up barrels of wine, the jugs that are much larger containers. That the Tosafot says we're not worried that the goy is going to fill the whole thing up and use it. It's heavy. It's a problem. So therefore, we're not concerned about that. But says the Gemara, when Rava would send these small jugs of wine, empty vessels of wine, he would not just send them in a regular shipment, but he would do what we learned earlier on in the Mesechet, what yayin, a kosher wine itself needs. If you remember, we mentioned that the kosher wine needs chotam betoch chotam. It needs a double seal, right? Nowadays in kashrut, anything that is kosher sensitive needs also chotam betoch chotam. This has become many folds of importance in the previous few years, because now you have all these systems of delivery, of shopping from a store, a kosher store, and it being delivered to you by a goy, which in that case you of course need chotam betoch chotam. How do you do chotam betoch chotam? How do you double seal? And of course people need to learn the basics of this to know if it was done when they are receiving it from a Uber Eat or any other means of transportation of the food. But be that as it may, the way Rava would do it is, he would send them upside down. He would put the barrels as he wrapped them upside down, and he would seal the cover on the bottom of the barrel. This way it's another seal on top, and that would be not forgeable easily. So says the Gemara, Sachif lehu apumahu, he would flip them on their head. So he would put them upside down, vechatim lehu apitzrayu, and he would put the seal, the chotam, on the cover and on the shulayim, on the bottom part of the barrels, hence creating the second seal over there as well. Kasavar, because Rava held halachically, kol davar shmachniso lekiyum, any vessel that is meant for wine, not just for like a funnel that you pour wine in it for just a second, but anything that's made that the wine stays in it, like a barrel, like a bottle of wine, like a barrel of wine, that has the halachic parameters of the same exact thing as yain nesach, it's a yain itself. So therefore, says the Gemara, afilu lefi sha'ah gazru be'rabanan, even for a short time, you're sending it for 2 hours delivery to Harpania, still you need all the halachot and dinim of yayin that's being sent by a goy, which would need shtei chodamot, 2 seals. And this of course is a way that Chazal wanted to ensure that we do not give our wine vessels to goyim, not to get into problems of yayin nesach. Fine. Says the Gemara, 4 lines up. We learned in the Mishnah on the top of the Amud that Gatshel Even Shezaftah Ovet Kochavim Menakeva. If you have a process of sealing the interior of the gat with tar, and the goy pours some wine in the process, Menakeva. That's what we learned. You dry it. What does it mean you dry it? How do you dry it? What's the process of drying? What, you have a blow dryer? How do you dry? So says the Gemara, Rava Amar b'mayim, Rabba Bar Chana Amar be'efer. Rava said you clean it up with water. Rabba Bar Chana says you dry it with ashes. So why says, wait a second. Rav Amar b'mayim velo be'efer. When we say Rav holds b'mayim, the Mishnah says menakeva. You dry it. You don't dry things with water. Last I checked. So the Gemara says with water and not subsequently with effer. Of course you need effer to dry it. And same question goes the other way around also. Well, he says only you put the effer there, you don't have to wash it off. So says the Gemara, no. The way it works is like this. Ella, Rav Amar b'mayim v'uadin lefer. Rav who says b'mayim means you also need effer, of course. And Rabba Bar Chana, who says efer v'uadin lemayim, he also needs water. So what is the machloket? So if both of them need both, if both of them hold that you need water and ashes to dry up and clean up the vat, the wine press, So what is exactly the machloket between Rav and Rabba Bar Chana? So says the Gemara, lo pligi. Haberetivta, habiyaveshta. The difference is not in halacha. They all agree to the same halacha. It depends. One of them was talking about the case that the wine press is still wet from the wine that the goy poured in, and the other one is talking about the dried up one, right? Now here becomes very complex. In Rashi, you note that they have the long Rashi over here. It's because Rashi brings two pshatim, and we'll try to explain it more simplified, according to the second one that he likes, in the name of his father. So it says, the Gemara, what it means is, if you have a dried up, if you have a wet one, so it's easy. You just put efer to dry it, and then you put water, and you're good. Right? It's two. And if you have the wine press that is dried, then you have to put, also, you don't have to just put efer, you also need water first, and then efer. So says the Gemara, Itmar, Berav, Mishmeh de Rav, Amri Tarti Tlat. It's going to explain the same thing in the way it was mentioned in Pumbedita versus Adi Yeshivot in Arda. So says the Gemara, it was said in the Bet Midrash, Berav, Mishmeh de Rav. They said it in the Bet Midrash of Rav, in the name of Rav. Amri Tarti Telat. They said you need two stages, two steps in the process, or three. And Shmuel says, no, you need 3 or 4. What does that mean? If you have something that is wet, right? You just put efer on it, you dry it, and then you wash it off afterwards. And that's 2 stages. You put efer, you put mayim, and you're good to go. But if it's dry, then it's worse. And then you need to first put water, and then you have to put efer, and then you have to put, so you have 3 stages. So says the Gemara, that's according to Rav. You need tarti tlat. And Shmuel says, no, you need tlat arbai. You need 3 or 4 stages. How so? Shmuel holds that if you have a wet, rather wine press, so you can't just do 3. You have to do first efer. You have to first dry it, and then you have to put water, and then you have to put efer again to dry it. That's what Shmuel says, and that's by wet one. By dry is even worse. You have to do 4 stages. You have to do 4 stages, because now you have to put water first to wash off the dried up wine that's there, right? Because you put efer on dry wine, nothing is going to do. So you have to first put water to scrub and revive, so to speak, the residual dried wine that's there. So that's one stage. Then you have to put efer to dry that up, right? So then you have to put water to wash it off, and then you have to dry it. So you have 2 times efer over here. So says the Gemara, V'shmur amar telat arbai, 3 or 4. Besura matnihachi, bepumbedita matnihachu. In the Shiva Pumbedita, they learn that it's 1 stage more than what they said in Surah. They say Rav holds, Mishmed the Rav, they say tlat arba, 3, 4, and Shmuel holds arba chamesh, 4, 5. So the Gemara says, wait a second, lo pliki. The yeshiva of Surah and Pumbedita are not arguing; they're saying the same thing. How in the world is it possible that they're saying the same thing if they have 1 extra stage? Says the Gemara, more kachashiv maya batrai. Umor lo kachashiv maya batrai. When you put the efer at the end, right? So halachically speaking, you're done basically, right? Halachically speaking, you put either efer, water, and efer, right? You put ashes, water, ashes, or you put water, ashes, But at the end, you're left off with ashes. What are you going to do? You're going to put your new wine on the ashes? No, you have to wash it. But that's not necessarily a halachic process. It's just a practical process. So in Na'arda, when they're saying this over, they are more practically cleaned up way of saying it. They are also including this stage, which is not halachic, but it's practical at the end, that you have to, of course, wash off the ashes at the very end, right? So it ends up, according to Rav, you end up with ashes, water, and Shmuel would be water, ashes, water, ashes, water. So that would be 5 versus 4, and they're really saying the same exact thing as the Yeshiva in Pumbedita. So it says the Gemara, now we overly simplified this because there's a Tosafot over here to be talked about, and as we mentioned, we took sides in a complex Rashi. I leave that up for the Chevra to learn it on their own, the complexity of the first versus second pshat in Rashi. But nevertheless, that's this state of first when you have drying some residual wine in the process of sealing the interior of your wine press with tar, which involved, again, the goy pouring some wine to take out the odor, the bad smell of tar. So it says the Gemara, Ba'u mineh min Rabbi Abahu. They asked Rabbi Abahu, Hani gurgi da'aramai mai. How do you deal with the ropes of the goyim that's used in the wine press? Now, we're going to, of course, have to continue this in the next shiur, but just the beginning of it is that they used to actually hold because the clusters of grape would be put on top of each other like a tapuach, like a towering structure, and then it would be pressed with the massive beam that would be placed on top of it, pressing down and squeezing the juice out of the grapes. And he didn't want them to move away, so they would be tied, so to speak, with a certain small rope. So it says, this is made out of items. Again, you have to look in Rashi, different pshatim, but they're extremely absorbent. They absorb all the wine that is squeezed on them in the process of the gat working, and you end up with these specifically made small ropes for this job. And it wasn't like nowadays that everything is one-time use. You use it one time and you trash it. You want to buy these and use it for your wine press, but it has absorbed already yain nesich of a goy. So how do you deal with it? Amaleh Rabbi Abahu Teritua. We learned this in a Braita. So we learned this. Hare shayu gatav ubet badav tmein. This is speaking about tum'ah v'tara, and that you have a gat or bad. Beta bad is the equivalent of wine press for oil, for olive press, basically for oil. So you have the same exact thing, that you have these ropes there. Now they're soaked with oil. In the case of a wine press, they're soaked with grape juice. That's the status of yain nesech. So in our case, we're dealing with yain nesech. In that right over here, we're talking about tum'ah v'tara. So it says the Braita, Ubikesh la'sotan betara. Your gat or betabat is tameh, and you now want to use it for tarot. So how do you do it? Hadafin va'adashin va'lulavin. Madichan. Some of the things you could just wash them well, right? Okay, out of time. Was hoping to finish this. This Braita. Let's start this actually tomorrow, because we have to go and discuss this in the way the Gemara brings it. So we'll B'ezrat Hashem restart this in the next year.